that you had to wake up so early for us.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm fresh, and I made sure I went to sleep early.
Yay, that's good.
The
Thank,
10% shy, but we're
hey,
here.
my goodness. But thank you so much for yeah showing up. And I know that there was a bit of a misinform yesterday. You did the same thing. You woke up. So,
2 nights in a row, waking up for four. But yeah, I try to be up by five.
all right.
So it's not too bad.
Yes, not too bad at all. So, TK, take us through the very beginning of your music journey and how you became the producer and the songwriter that you are now. If you could just maybe going back to when you were a kid, is this something that you've always wanted to do? And was it always in your mind? Did you grow up in a home where, it was allowed and you were experimenting throughout your childhood? Or was it the opposite?
Yeah, my dad's a pastor, so I've been in church my whole life. And by the grace of God, I'm still a
Mm.
part of the church, and I still love the Lord because sometimes, you hear stories about pastors' kids and things don't end well. But
Mm.
I yeah, I from a young age, I just loved music. I loved
Mm.
worship. And my father, well, I was part of Dutch Reformed.
Mm.
Uh, and if you know anything about that church, there's no musical instruments allowed.
Yes.
So but they sing a cappella, which is great for learning how to sing and training your ear and things like that. But there was no musical instruments. So my dad was actually a maverick because he introduced a sound system and a keyboard. Uh,
Wow.
and so that keyboard beyihlala endlini, and I would play on it during the week and start to learn how to play the piano and figure things out. And that's kind of how my musical journey began. Uh,
Mm.
and yeah, my parents just encouraged me. They let me play in church. I used to watch or the one musician in the church play, and I'd stand over his shoulder like this to see what he was doing.
Wow.
And that's kind of how I learned really, taught myself how to play and express that in the church. And I think the dark side of that history is that I was only ever encouraged to play in church and never anywhere else. So for example, if there were things happening at school or if there were things happening, competitions in Jengaphandle, it was all seen as, no, that's secular. We don't do that. We only sing for the Lord. We only play for the Lord. And it had a very negative association where, you start to resent the church because then your talents are all just being used in the church, and every weekend you're in church, and there was just some kind of healthy disconnect there. But thank God that he turned that around for me and he redeemed that. And I was able to find a church that encouraged us that, worship is for all of our lives. And it's not just restricted to when you're in church on a Sunday, but Monday through Saturday and Sunday, we are called to worship the Lord with our gifts in everything that we do. So this thing of like a sacred secular divide is almost man-made, and we need to bring our whole selves to the Lord and to express ourselves no matter what it is that we're doing. And so that's kind of how my musical journey developed. And when I got to high school, got introduced to Western music and choral music. I joined a choir. When I got to university, that's when I started playing with other musicians and playing in bands and things like that. And I when I got to the University of Johannesburg, that's where I met up with Langam Bonambi, and it was just kind of like right place, right time. He was getting ready to launch his vision for worship called We Will Worship. And that's how I got involved with We Will Worship. It was during my campus days. And yeah, that's kind of how the journey evolved from there.
I can fully relate to what you spoke about because I also grew up in a traditionally very black church, and that didn't allow musical instruments, as well. So I can fully relate. But it's interesting how the next generation has started slowly but surely introducing those musical instruments and taking away that sort of this is how it must be like, and that restrictiveness. So yeah, a lot is changing. I think God is at work. God
Yep.
is definitely at work. Now your work is deeply rooted in African soul music and global worship. That's what you do. What inspires your unique sound?
Yeah, so I think growing up I was, like I said, Christian household, very strict, and I'm so grateful, to my parents. They did their best
Mm.
uh raising me and in raising me the way that they thought was right. But in our house you couldn't turn on the TV and just watch anything.
Yep.
You couldn't just listen to anything. So my earliest influences were all Christian music, like Jimmy Swaggart. That's who my dad
Mm.
used to listen to when I
Oh, you need
and
TK.
Ron Canoli, and like he barely listened to any African or South African musicians, gospel
All
musicians.
international.
Have a conversation with him, but like it was mostly international Christian music. And it was only as I started getting older where, oh, I discovered, oh, there's a Joyous Celebration. Oh, there's a Kirk Franklin. Oh, there's a Fred
Mm.
Hammond. And started discovering all these different sounds that were more
Mm.
African influenced. And then just fast forward, when I got to college, uh, when we were in We Will Worship, there was a real hunger in me, just looking around, going on mission trips and things like that.
Yeah.
You'd go to India and, I'm excited, we're going to go preach the gospel in India. And when we get there, I'm expecting Indian worship, we're going to fellowship with the Indian people, see how they worship.
Mm.
And then you get there and they're singing Hillsong.
Mm.
Like, there's nothing wrong with Hillsong. Hillsong is amazing.
Mm.
But I'm anticipating like they're gonna sing in their own language, they're gonna use
Mm.
Indian instruments. And so when I thought about it, I was like, actually, this is similar to what it's like in South Africa, where even
Mm.
though we have multicultural churches, or even in our black churches, you don't see any African instruments when you go to our churches. Uh,
Mm.
a church might have like a percussion kit or something like that, but
Yeah.
really, you don't see, uh, that African influence in terms of the instruments that our ancestors used to play. And that
Wow.
really bothered me. It really bothered me that,
Mm.
um, you know, our it our ancestral musicianship is associated with, sangoma or like
Mm.
negative
Like all the
spirituality.
negative connotations. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm.
And so, we spoke about it as a band, and we started introducing some more African instruments in
Mm.
worship. I think it was the third album that we recorded.
Mm.
And I think it was a great sound. The Muso album.
Yeah. 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 That one. Mm.
Yeah. And so from that point, I've just kind of been in search of this sound that
Mm.
is, the African continent, but like fused with a modern, obviously we live in the 21st century, and trying to figure out ways to merge the two and bring those instruments forward into the current century. So that's kind of where the sound I'm developing comes from.
Mm. Hmm. I love that you took it a step further. You didn't leave things as they were, but it was a matter of introducing what is our sound as Africans into, sort of a contemporary sound and making that work together. Now, what sparks your creativity when producing and when songwriting?
Yeah, I would say definitely the word of God is the primary source of inspiration.
Mm,
Um, no matter what type of music I'm making, but uh, it always comes back uh, to God, and I mean, He's the ultimate creative source. You
mm,
know, He's a substratum on which everything, in Him we live, in Him we move, in Him we
we
have
have
our
a
being.
being, yeah.
And so, no, it's funny, like no matter what, uh, no matter even if it's instrumental music, which I've been doing a lot lately, it always comes down to a verse, like something that I'm an idea or a scripture or a verse that I'm trying to express or put sound to. So that's usually the primary motivation.
Mm, I love it. Now, you're known for pushing those boundaries within gospel music, as you've already alluded to. How do you balance innovation with tradition?
Yeah, that's a tough one, and it's a tension that we as Africans have to deal with because
Mm,
what is African is also a huge point of debate. It's like, you know, right now, I think my position now is that anything that Africans create is African
yeah.
because we can't be stuck in the centuries past where, okay, what's African has to look a certain way and has to sound a certain way.
Mm,
But, as we develop with the times, as we develop new recipes for itombolo, as we develop new
yeah.
clothing
It's
lines and like all the
evolving.
style
Mm,
that's coming out of South Africa right now, whatever is created by Africans and inspired by um, African thought and creativity, that
mm,
is African. So I try and bring any new innovation and technology through that threshold of like, okay, how do we as Africans think about this? Or how do I, with my upbringing, my perspective,
yeah.
my language, my people um, who migrated from Mozambique into South Africa, you
Mm,
know, just carrying all that heritage of the Mabelanes, how do we perceive this new technology and how can we express it in different ideas?
mm,
And so I try to kind of remove all the limits and whatever
mm,
technology I'm using um, to put it through that lens. Right now, I'm working with a friend of mine from Zimbabwe,
mm,
who's an engineer at MIT,
mm.
and working to modernize some African instruments. So
Wow.
we want to take like mbira
Wow.
and uh, and there's a technology called MIDI for musical instruments that
Mm,
allows you to play musical notes and it translates that into computer software.
mm,
But normal keyboards have that, but African instruments obviously don't have that because most of them don't have an electric interface.
mm,
So what we're working on with him is to, a system that will take, Mbira, and as you pluck it, it will create musical notes in computer software. And that's just some of the ways that we're using technology to bring up, our own culture and
mm,
share that. So, yeah.
mm. I love it. I love it a lot. Um, Give us a sneak peek into what is coming up, any upcoming music projects or initiatives. What are you currently up to? You are obviously away from SA. What are you up to? What are you doing? And also the differences that you've found in being in the US. I think you've already also, slightly spoken about the fact that just how sound and music is like that side. But if you could just elaborate a bit further.
Yeah. Projects that are coming up. So I'm very excited for a new song that I'm releasing next Friday
Mm,
with King D Music, the one and only, and we're collaborating on a Afro gospel song. And
mm,
I'm just excited to share that with everyone. Later on, probably next year on my birthday in January, I'm going to
Mm.
uh, an instrumental project, which is more, people will call it jazz, but it's not jazz.
Mm.
It's it's just instrumental pop music.
Mm.
But that project is going to feature some international and local artists who coincidentally are in the jazz space. And so, yeah, I'm trying to push the boundary of what uh, music that praises God looks like and sounds like.
Yeah.
So, people obviously expect Christian music to have lyrics and to speak about God. And that's great. Um, but as I mentioned earlier, um, our whole lives belong to God. I think there's an Israel Houghton song that says, Jesus at the center of it all.
Mm.
It's not like you have a list of things and Jesus is number one, but he's the center out of which, everything emanates. And so, yeah, the music that I'm trying to do is pushing the boundary of like, how can I communicate God's beauty and bring people closer to the presence of God, even without lyrics?
Yeah.
Or even if it does have lyrics, I'm communicating kingdom values. And I'm
Yeah.
talking about how do I love my wife well? And I'm talking about how do I
Mm.
raise my kids well?
Yeah.
How do we change the world and make it a better place? And then obviously, I do love worship, and I am
Mm.
working on a worship album that I will release probably sometime this time next year. And that will
Lovely.
be full on gospel, CCM, all the things, African traditional gospel,
Fantastic.
and come out probably later next year. But just to answer your question about the international music scene, being here in Boston,
Mm.
uh, yeah, man, it's a culture shock being in
Yeah.
a different space.
Mm.
And it's been difficult to kind of, you wanna create African music, but there's no Africans around. I've been
Catch
writing some
20 too much.
you know, I I've got a Zulu song that I've been writing, and I'm like, man, I want to record this so bad, and it's a choir song. But I don't know if I can teach people to pronounce the lyrics properly, the way
Mm.
it's supposed to be pronounced, or even just to sing the style, the way.
Yeah. There's a
Um,
way. There's a way.
there's a way where you can just tell, like, okay, these guys, the sound is very familiar. But it's
Mm.
it's challenged me and it stretched me to um, to to think about Western music is so well articulated and well
Mm.
researched and well defined, and they're able to translate that to almost any environment where, you know, kids in Africa can learn the violin and
Yeah.
play um, because they've found a way to articulate all the different nuances.
Yeah.
And that's just challenged me to think about how we can do the same
Mm.
and teach people how do we actually pronounce these words? How do we actually um, speak this language? How do we actually sing with the right inflections and the right notes?
Mm.
So
Mm.
differentiate between Mpakanga and Isayon and
Mm.
to music and
Mm.
and have those nuances in a textbook somewhere that someone can pick up and
Yeah.
sing and how to perform.
Mm.
So it's really grown me as a musician. And I actually recorded some music a week or two ago with a professor from the UK and a drummer from the US.
Wow.
And it was reinterpreting hymns. I think we did like typical hymns like doxology, and we did like some Hillsong songs like Good Good Father, those
Mm.
type of songs,
Mm.
but in an African interpretation. And I
Wow.
was surprised at how, if you're able to communicate the finer elements of what makes African music real,
Mm.
are able to pick that up and play it and express it the way that an African would. So that's another one that another project I forgot to mention. I'm excited for that to come out and see how the world receives that.
It's so much needed and necessary in this world. And I'm so glad that you, people like you, God has raised you up, to be this game changer, in this moment, season, and time for your generation. And for pushing those boundaries, man, for pushing those boundaries. I think as we're having this conversation, I'm taken back to your dad, when he introduced those musical instruments. He was sowing a certain seed,
Mm.
for his generation. Because look at it now. Look at the things that you're doing. So
We've come
it's
full circle. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. So TK, any advice to other young aspiring producers and songwriters that one day want to be like a TK? I know that you're going to say they can't be like me, but you know exactly what I mean.
Yeah, for the younger generation, man, I would say if you're passionate about music, do everything you can to study it well.
Yeah.
Uh, I think one of the things I wish that I had was a formal music education.
Mm,
And my path was unique and different, and I don't regret it. But with my kids right now, I'm taking them to violin school,
yeah.
and they're learning how to read music.
Yeah.
Uh, not all music requires that level of discipline, but I think if you want to spend your life uh, being in the music industry and playing music, you need to know how to communicate.
Yeah.
And you need to learn the trade and to do it well. And so I think that's the first thing that I would advise is do what you can to formally learn music, or even if it's just, these days there's so much information on YouTube, on Google, that, you don't technically need to go to a music school. Um, you can just do the research on your own. But the Bible speaks about um, study to show yourself approved. I
Yeah.
think that it's Timothy there. And it's important that, even if you play by ear, or, you're a singer, and, singers generally don't know music theory, but it's important to study the language of music, even if you're not studying necessarily Western classical music or anything like that,
Yeah.
but to be able to communicate with other people effectively so that you can get your point across is important. And then the second thing I would say is submit it to the Lord.
Mm,
Um, yeah, it's not
sure.
for the faint-hearted.
Yeah.
Uh, music is a difficult industry.
Yeah.
Um, Making it is very difficult to the point where you can sustain your family. And this is not to discourage anyone, but you need to count the cost. And I for the longest time did music as a side hustle. So
Wow.
I was a computer engineer. I
Mm,
studied software engineering. I was coding. I was making websites. Uh, I was a management consultant.
mm,
So I spent a lot of my time in the corporate world, and then after hours, that's when I would do music. Because the corporate gig allowed me to fund the music
yeah.
to a point where the music rose up, and I'm now able to live off of it. So I would say submit it to the Lord, bring it to Him in prayer, uh, and don't just rush to jump in because you see, people winning awards, and you think they're making money. They, yeah, that's the sad reality that we live in, is that just because people are winning Crown Gospel Awards or anything, it actually doesn't mean they're able to take care of themselves. I would encourage people to submit that to the Lord and ask the Lord to really provide for them and be their source.
Yeah.
And then I think the last
So
thing I
good.
would say is uh, is to think global. So
Mm.
South Africa, I love South Africa with all my heart. But South African has about 65, 70 million people, uh,
Mm.
which is a drop in the ocean. Um, we can't all be Rebecca Malope. We can't all be Ntokozo
Mm.
Mbambo. I
Mm.
love those ladies. They're amazing.
Mm.
And they've worked hard to be where they are.
Yeah.
But this is a small pond, and the world is so much bigger than South Africa.
Yeah.
Need to, even if you just think about Southern Africa
Mm.
and how you can export your music to other places and not
Mm.
just to the South African borders. So, try and learn Swahili,
Mm.
which is in South Africa. Try and learn French and, make connections outside of South Africa with people on the continent that you can collaborate with, because then your music spreads wider and you have a bigger source of income to support yourself. So think global.
Mm. Mm. Think global. I love it. I love it so much. Everything has been just so good, so solid, and so encouraging in, evolving as music evolves, also evolve as an individual. Thank you so much for a heartfelt and real conversation, about those hardships, about, having that plan for your life and not thinking that I can just go into this, blindly, but it takes a lot of sacrifice. And so you have to be ready for that sacrifice. Thank you for your honesty and, just relaying the story in such a comforting way, and also in such a sort of heart moving, wrenching way, where it's almost like a call to action, but from a loving father. So thank you. You definitely have a gift there. Your kids must be very, very blessed to have a dad like you.
Yeah,
uh,
someone must tell them because I don't think they know that.
no, now they know because this is recorded. So thank you, TK. May God really just bless the work of your hands. May you continue to be that beacon of light, to South African musicians, to musicians all over the world. Continue to push those boundaries for us, making ways for the next generation of musicians to come. And thank you for your thoughtfulness, and as a teacher, I feel like there's a teacher in you. I can just imagine you giving lectures somewhere, Boston University or whatever, just lecturing about music and gospel
I
music
received that.
specifically.
I received that.
Yeah, man. It's there. It's there. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us, and being so authentic with it. Siyabulela kakhulu, and may God just bless your ministry as you fly to the world.
So much, CC, and thank you for having me this morning.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Blessings to you and your entire family. Thank you for waking up this hour of the day. Bye bye. Bye bye, TK. Bye bye. Blessings. There you go. A family of Cape